Hey everyone, thanks for joining our Midweek podcast. My name is Andrew and I am your host. And hopefully I don't screw up in the intro this week like I did last week, because Pastor Scott will not be here to bail me out. But joining me, I do have Pastor Eric Goldsboro, GT North's campus pastor, as well as Kim Geddes, our serve director here at GT. Scott was not able to work his schedule out. You know, the life of the lead pastor, sometimes it gets a little busy, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what he does.
Eric, we'll have to do.
Well, I'm curious about the intro last week. What happened? I have to listen to it.
Yeah, you go back and listen to it. But for a quick recap, I completely fluffed up. You know, we went from, pre-talk joking and conversation just into it, and I had no train of thought, and he just was like, well, I'll take over, I guess.
At least people know it was live, right?
Yeah. Hey, yeah, and they know from a couple weeks ago too. I didn't curse, okay? I didn't curse.
I heard that story.
Yeah.
Boy, I missed a lot. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so I can't curse. I have to keep a train of thought here. Okay.
I think we have to install, those dump buttons in case, it gets a little too rowdy. No, okay, back on topic. Man, we're off. We're off already. And I'm the cause this time. Jeez. Back on topic. We have been in a series examining the vision of the church and our church. And we started off with a vision for missions, and then the vision for the church, our church body and where we're going. And this week was about a vision for service and serving. And Scott, as well as you, Eric, preached from the same text about, serving and why we serve at the church. So to kick off our conversation, would you mind just kind of recapping the main points from the message and just kind of anything that you had in your perspective from it? And for the listeners, if obviously the majority of our listeners we're assuming are West Lawn attendees, so they wouldn't have naturally heard your message, but your message is available on the website in the watch page under the series as well. So I encourage everybody to go and watch Pastor Eric's message, and you can hear his full message from Sunday as well.
Yeah, it was, I love this series. I probably say that every time we do a series, but, kicking off a new year, talking about vision, it's just so important that a church does that, because vision is vital to wherever the Lord is leading you. So I'm super excited for this. Our story was out of Matthew 20, and it's actually this little encounter Jesus has with the sons of thunder and their mother. Who actually the mother approaches Jesus with her sons. And when I say sons, these are not little boys. These are not preteens. These are young men. These are disciples. And mom brings the boys, which to me is just kind of awkward. As a young man, I think I can speak for myself. I love my mom, and I know she loves me, but I don't need her to. So it's just kind of this awkward situation when you really think about it. And boy, what she asked of Jesus is really kind of like bold. And it was to put her sons in this high place of honor. And Jesus, in his Jesus way, he knows our hearts, he knows our thoughts, and Jesus does what he does. He asks some tough questions, and then he goes on to explain that, it's really not up to me where your boys are going to be put in this position of honor, but it's up to my Father. But I can tell you this, that I came to serve, not to be served. So he kind of gives them something to think about of like, I've come to be an example of a servant. And so that's where our text was from. And there were 3 simple points. The first one was, we must resist our natural tendencies to adopt worldly mindsets. And so as a follower of Christ in this world, we are inundated and saturated with information and books and YouTube and you name it. It's all out there. If you want to find something out about somebody, you can get everybody's perspective. Well, as a follower of Christ, our perspective first and foremost should always come from the Word of God. So we must stay focused, and Jesus has given us an example of to be servants, and not just on a Sunday morning, but live a lifestyle of servanthood. And he modeled that for us. So I think living in this world, we must be very careful that we don't stray off the path of what Christ has given us to do. So it's a battle we face. Paul talked about it. One of the scriptures I used was Galatians 5:17. Actually, the whole chapter of Galatians 5 is about living in the Spirit. So that was the first point. The second point was pretty much not you. So I'm a big believer that every person on the face of the earth, all 8 billion of them, there's 2 ways we can live. As a follower of Christ, I choose to live according to the Word of God, or you can live the way of the world. And it's amazing how small things can change something. And in that, word and world is one letter. And we really got to make a decision. What are you going to live according to the world and their ways and what they say and all of those things? Are we going to listen to the Word? So when I mean not so with you or not you, I'm not living the way of the world. I tried it. It was really, really tough. It was difficult. It was frustrating, and I never felt satisfied. Third point was live a life built on serving others. And I tell you, something happens to you personally, and I'll use missions as an example. I remember my first missions trip, which is really about serving others. I mean, in a big way, taking you way out of your comfort zone, whether it's local or worldwide, doesn't matter. You go to serve others, and you give of your time and your effort and your resources and all of these things, and you want to bless them and serve them. And something happens to you in the process of serving others. You become so fulfilled and blessed. It's an amazing dynamic that happens. And it seems the more you serve, I'll just speak for myself, the more I serve others, the more fulfilled I am. I truly believe it is greater to receive, to give than receive. Sure. Not that I don't like receiving gifts. Right, we all like that. But there is something amazing that happens in your soul and your spirit when you serve others and give of yourself. So that wasn't quick, but that was a mini sermon.
Kim, yes. just for you, from your perspective, from hearing Scott's message on Sunday and just kind of being refreshed with the text, with Eric's recap, what hits you? What stands out to you about the message?
Yeah, well, I just think like when you're serving others, it's because you love people. It's because what Jesus modeled for us. It's because what we're called to do. I love those four little words, not so with you. It's saying, no, I'm calling you to be different. The world, can be so self-serving, right? But we're not to be self-serving. We're to be others focused. I have this little plaque in my office that I grabbed at a conference years ago, and it just simply says others, and it's just a reminder that we are to be others focused because that's what Jesus did. And he's saying, you're not to be like the world. Eric just said, like, you're to be outwardly focused. And I think what you just said is so true. Like we don't even realize, like, because we're supposed to serve humbly. We're not supposed to be serving like to looking for something in return, right? Again, because you can volunteer all kinds of things, but oftentimes maybe you're looking for something in return, but we're supposed to be just open-handed, not looking for something in return. But you are right. You just get blessed, so much. You can be blessed by building relationships with other people when you're serving on a team. Like you can just seeing like life change happen in the people you're serving. Like it just, just feeling part of something greater than yourself. I mean, the blessings that you get back are incredible. Not things that you can hold, but just that fulfilled feeling, that you're serving others. And it really stems from love. And he calls us to love one another, love our neighbors, and that's just another outwardly way we can do that. So.
I just thought of this teaching moment the Lord made happen in my life one time, and it really changed my perspective. we all grow up in different households and environments, and you watch your parents and relatives, and some of that becomes ingrained in you, and it's just how it is. And I come from a family where it's just hard work. You earn it, you get out there, you get after it, you earn everything. It's about earning. And there's a lot of truth in that. I believe in that. But I'm also a believer, because I kind of had to find this out the hard way, that there are times in life where you give, and there's times in life where you receive. And it's always been hard for me to receive. I think a lot of it is just what was ingrained in me and all of that. But the reality is there will come times in your life where you can earn it, whether it's physically, spiritually, emotionally. You can't. You just can't. It's impossible. And I remember receiving help one time, and it was so difficult. And at first I resisted. I'm like, no, I'll be okay. It's going to be fun. And I'll never forget what this person said to me. It changed my whole outlook. They said, don't you rob this blessing from me. Right. And I was like, yikes. The Lord told them and prompted them to help. And by me resisting is actually robbing the blessing of what God told. And I was like, oh my, I never even thought of it like that.
Right.
If the Lord speaks something into and it changed me, it helped me become more generous and more giving, and realize I need to be, when the Lord says, help them in whatever way that is a blessing I want you to bestow upon them, and make sure I get the honor for it. It just radically changed my life. It really did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I love both of you guys referenced a couple ideas, and Eric, you used Galatians 5:17, but a few verses before 5:13, Paul starts, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. And like, how much of that just wraps up like what he doesn't, there's no specification as to who's supposed to do it.
That's right. We're
all supposed to do it. And we're supposed to use the freedom we have in Christ to serve one another humbly in love. I think people can look at it at serving as, what does this get? What can I get out of this? And, there's plenty of scriptures that talk about, works with faith without works is dead. Yep. And the balance of, there you have salvation, sanctification, you have your faith, but that you also need to be doing things in.
That's right.
Our faith is active.
Right.
And it's also just looking at how should we posture our heart when we approach these opportunities to serve one another?
Yeah. The works and faith, I always kind of give an illustration to people. It's like railroad tracks. They run parallel with each other. And a train can't go off the track if both wheels are on the track. It'll go forward. So faith and works should work hand in hand. Our works comes out of our faith.
Right. So that overflow.
I get it. Every human being's natural tendency, because we're all born into this, every single human being again, is to be selfish. It's easy to be selfish.
Sure.
It feels good to be selfish for a time, until you realize how much better it feels serving others. And that all comes from the transformation, Romans 1 and 2, that happens within our heart and mind of when we ask Christ into our life. And that verse from that whole chapter in Galatians is so powerful. But the verse that you read about, for you were called to freedom, brothers. Our freedom, what we think of freedom in America, is not the freedom he's talking about. We think freedom, we can do whatever we want. Yep, that's true, but not the Bible. Paul also talks about, don't use your freedom to sin. Not everything is permissible. Like, it's not this, oh, well, I can just go out and do whatever I want. Well, in a sense you can, but it's not pleasing to the Lord. So we need to, that verse can be very contorted, but you got to read the full text, which you did. So important.
Yeah. I love that, the humbly too, right? You know, and you just said, Eric, like sometimes it's so hard to receive others serving you when you are outwardly focused. Like I know, there's just been times in my life going through rough times when, I had to like humbly receive too,
Yeah, it's
because
tough.
it is hard to sometimes receive. But that, what you said too, is like, don't rob somebody else of because they're serving, they feel called to serve you. So sometimes we do have to also humbly receive.
That's exactly, it is very humbling. Yeah. But it's also life-changing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Because you never forget that. It's this beautiful heart change that happens within you. You really do start to form the heart of Christ and the eyes of Christ. Like you get it,
Right.
Well,
and think about if you want to do something for somebody and they refuse it, then
hurtful.
you're getting robbed of that blessing too. So so it's a kind of a full circle thing.
Well, and I also love it, 1 Corinthians 13, starting in verse 1, if you speak in tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and I have the faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to the hardship that I may boast, but I do not have love, I gain nothing. Yeah. So, it like a stark reminder that like, just because you like maybe somebody signed up for the first time to serve on Sunday and is thinking like, okay, I'm supposed to do this, I'm going to do this, but you're approaching it with that wrong mindset. You're not approaching it because to serve others because you love others, but because of some sort of maybe feeling of like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, because we are supposed to serve one another. But there's lots of places in the Bible that yes, you're supposed to do this, but you're supposed to do this a certain way, and that is just as important. And without that heart, without that having your heart in the right place when you approach these situations and opportunities to serve others. Yeah. It's meaningless. You're just a clanging gong, a noisy cymbal.
And I can say from personal experience, I was the clanging gong. When I was first asked to serve, I did it out of exactly what you just said. I'm part of this church. They need help. Okay, they're desperate. Terrible attitude, just awful. But God, in his grace and mercy, knew exactly what he was doing. And I went down into the basement at Warwick Drive, which was creepy and weird and smelly, and in second grade, and I was petrified. I was underqualified. And after 45 minutes, I walked out of there king of the world. I thought this was the coolest thing ever.
You weren't in second grade.
No, I wasn't in second grade.
You were a Sunday school teacher, right?
I was
just want to clarify.
By second graders.
Just want to clarify.
Which was the last place I ever thought I would serve.
Yeah.
It's just so God will take your grumpy yes, and it's amazing what he can do with that. Right. Now, we can't stay in that position. Right. I remember when I had worked a different job outside of church, I had to hire staff at different times, and I was always a firm believer. This is my philosophy to hiring. I don't need someone who can do everything. That would be nice. Yeah. But what's more important than that is the person with the right attitude, a teachable spirit. Give me that, and I can teach you anything. And I think God is saying the same thing. I don't need you to know everything. Right. I want your heart, man. Give me your heart. Trust me, and watch what I do in you.
Well, I was going to say too, like we can work with a grumpy yes.
That's right.
We can prayerfully that will change, right?
And again, that there can be benefit out of that, but for you, as the individual, if your heart's not in the right place,
that's right.
You're only doing a disservice to yourself.
That's right. Yeah. And if your heart doesn't change along the way, hopefully that will lead to a heart change.
But I think it also, because the idea of it, the example of like, a new relationship, like it, you need to continually renew that love. So,
Sure.
I think about like when Ange and I started dating, like, and there's that new love, you're willing to do anything and everything for the other person. And then over time, you just get into like, well, hey, that's, laundry stacking up. That's their chore. I ain't like, and it's not meant to be like that. And I think even in situations like, I still love my wife, even when chores are stacking up and it's like, well, those are hers. Those aren't mine.
Yeah.
Like, but our love should motivate us to, regardless of what the situation. And I think as Christians, we can get into a place where maybe we entered into it with love, and now it's just now it just feels like a job and a routine, and it's like trying to find that love, or remember that love that we have and why we are doing it, for others.
We pastors, we meet with a lot of people, a lot of couples, and I can tell you a lot of marriages and relationships could be saved if couples did one thing, and this is what I like to encourage people with: outserve one another. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, I dare you.
Yeah.
Try and outserve your spouse.
Yeah.
Try and outserve them, and watch what happens. Yeah. Oh, it will just bring walls down, the respect, the love, all those things each person desire. Just start outserving one another. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I've been married 23 years this year. I think 22 this year. And you're right, Andrew. You do get stuck in ruts, and you do take not advantage, but I guess you do in a way that they'll do it or whatever. And Christ talks a lot about, he modeled serving to us. Mm-hmm. And so just start out serving your spouse, serve your kids, not enable them, not make them lazy, but serve, live a life of service, and it will truly make a difference in people's lives. And I believe it will rub off on them also.
Yeah. I wouldn't want somebody to be serving here at church and they're not serving their own family, and they're right. Like, I feel like that's just a really good place to start. If just serving in general is new to you, start serving your family.
And I can tell you from experience that happens. So I did that.
Well, change the atmosphere in your home.
Not in this marriage. Many people know out there, I'm remarried, Marlene and I, but I know in my first marriage, when things were very difficult, I ran to church and served because I was appreciated, I felt loved, and it was easy. And it was a huge mistake, huge mistake. So, I tell all my staff and volunteers, it's God first, it's family second, and it's church third. Now, Jesus is at the top of the list of all those, obviously, but you've really got to keep that. And we as staff want to always keep our volunteers healthy and have those conversations and meet with them. And nobody has a perfect marriage or relationship, but yeah, it's important to keep those things in line.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to jump to, I had a posing question, and, here we have steps that we ask people to take.
Yes.
So I'm going to pose a question to bring up some conversation, but it might be something that people are thinking.
Sure.
So the question is, are we stopping people from experiencing the fullness of a relationship with God by not letting them to start serving immediatally?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that...
Okay. That's it. Hey,
okay, that's it.
Thanks for joining us.
Say anything else?
No, we have a serve, we call it a serve process,
sure.
And is very intentional.
Sure.
And so maybe some people can feel put off by, hey, I want to jump in and serve. I want to jump in and help. Like I just started coming here last week. I love what you guys are doing. Where can you use me?
Yeah.
And we often, just wait.
Yeah.
But talk us through the heart and mindset behind that.
And I hope I do this justice, but I think, I'll use my own story. So, our family was attending a church for a really long time. The church my husband and I were married in back in 1985. And we came to GT probably around 2006. We had served at that church, it was a smaller church. So in a smaller church, a lot of times people do many different things, wear many hats. We came here, we were still up in the Next Gen. That was our sanctuary. So I just remember just sitting for a while, just coming and just sitting for a while. There was some reasons why we kind of were seeking a new church, and our friends had checked out GT. And but then I remember there came a time when we were like, okay, this doesn't feel right anymore. Like, I feel like we're here. This is going to be our church, and we've settled on that, So we took some time to get to know first, like what was GT about. We wanted to make sure that, it felt like a good fit for us, first and foremost. And then we said, okay, now we want to become a part of this church body, and we want to make this our home, and we want to serve, because that's what we were used to doing and wanted to meet people and things like that. So, so we took some time. And then there was a not quite the serve process that we have today, but I think that, you need to make sure that this is the right church for you. I think that we make it pretty easy and pretty obvious how to get connected here through the steps. So we start with coffee with the pastor, because we want you to come and just hear the heart of our pastor, right? It's hard for him to do that on a Sunday morning, through your preaching, right? But you do coffee with the pastor, Eric. Yeah. You want new people to come and you share your heart a little bit with them. And then the next step is get connected with me and Tony Roman, who, leads groups. And that's just so we can share, like, why do we feel like you should even be connected to the church? And then we do a thing called serve coaching, and that's where we can get to know you a little bit. So, if you just came in and said, well, I want to serve, like in kids or something, without us knowing anything about you, and without you knowing anything about the church, that would be kind of
be irresponsible.
Awkward.
It would be irresponsible on the church.
Yeah. We want to make sure that, we help you discover your spiritual gifts, so we can make sure that where you're actually going to go serve is really in your gifting. So there's, a lot of reasons behind it, but I think I don't know. I don't think it's a really long process. I think if you walked in week 1 and you're like, well, I came from a church and I serve there, I want to serve here. For me, that's an even bigger reason to take a break. You just made a big switch in your life. So there's a lot of reasons behind it. And it's not that we want to keep something from you. We always say it's more about what we want for you than what we want from you, But we want to make sure we do it responsibly.
That's
and
right.
There's some paperwork, there's clearances, all of that kind of thing. So, I think there's just a lot of reasons that we just want to make sure we do it right and we do it well, and we set you up for success. I say that to volunteers all the time. Like, we want to set you up for success. And, it would be really hard on our leaders too, if we had people who just jumped in and then find out backwards that it's not the best fit. Like, leaders would be going, that would be kind of like a revolving door, and don't want to do that to our leaders.
It's beneficial for both the volunteer and the church.
Sure, absolutely.
Imagine if, and many people have done this, you start a new career or profession and a new company. Well, they have processes, and nobody's going to be like, okay, well, here's your desk. Here, have at it. Have at what? So there's always an orientation. I know when Marlene started at Penske, I think it was a week-long orientation. It's a big company. Yeah. So they want to set her up for success. So, you walk through the process. And so, I like what you said. We want our volunteers to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was talking to a young man who's pretty new at the campus, and he's just on fire. He's like, this past Sunday, I just anywhere, put me anywhere. Yeah. I said, well, listen, I love that heart. I absolutely love it. I said, and we use this term a lot, we want to find your fit. And I said, tell me some things you're passionate about, man. Like what gets you excited? Like what drives you? And we're talking. I said, one of the things we do here that I just love is we do a test drive. I said, so Eric, and his name's Eric, I said, if you say you want to do this and volunteer here, and we're going to put you in a test drive. And after that test drive, we want your honest feedback, because maybe you're like, I don't know about this. Cool. Not a problem. We get it. Right. How about we put you over here? Right. And you could just see it was like, that's pretty cool. Right. He understood we have your best interest in mind, and we have the church's best.
Right.
It's a win-win. It really is. So,
And I am here almost 13 years on staff. I was a serve coach volunteering for about a year before I came on staff to help lead the team. So we've been doing this process for about 14 years, and it came out of failure because it wasn't being done well.
No, it wasn't.
You know, as a leader, Eric, you probably were back in student ministry then, but as a leader, you had to kind of work through getting volunteers on your own and getting them into you know, a role. And so we sort of gathered that all from, you know, the staff who's super busy with just leading their ministry areas, and said, no, let's do a central process. And you know, someone who is great with processes helped write it. And you know, I was a volunteer coach when it started. Like, I was answered a call in what we had a bulletin then, but it was like, if you'd like to do this, and it just jumped out and spoke to me, and I went and you know, checked it out and became a coach as a volunteer, and just loved it so much. So our process really did come out of us failing before I was part of the us, but
Yeah.
and so you know, we've been doing it tweaks along the way. But I hope as a leader, you appreciate that any volunteer you get, you know that they've been through our steps. You know that they're coming just to test drive and check it out. And so you're open-handed. If in the past, if somebody came to volunteer with you and it just wasn't their fit, we heard stories of people just, you know, they'll stop showing up. Maybe they'll leave the church because they're embarrassed. They don't want to tell you they don't like it. Well, we take all of that away and say, it's okay if you don't like it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then guess what? We're gonna find another area for you, and we're gonna let you test drive in another area until you do find your best fit.
And like for me as a ministry leader, and now this pertains less to the people listening, but like I love our test drive process because I lead a very technical
Yes.
like area that for a lot of people, probably 90% of my people would feel so intimidated they never would be on the team because they would think they aren't qualified, that they have to have pre-qualifications to serve in the production that goes on behind the scenes at the church. And the reality is the majority of my volunteers have no formal education or training.
Right.
They've received it all by being a part of the team and under, you know, mine and my team members' leadership and our training of them, but they never would have experienced that without our test drive process where they get to just come in and see behind the scenes and ask some of the other volunteers questions and start to see everything that goes on behind the scenes and pick it apart and realize, oh, this big thing that has all these different moving parts, like you can really break it down into some simple things and start to understand like, oh, it doesn't need to be overwhelming and intimidating. And like, especially for my area, it is a very long test drive process. Nobody comes in and is like, hey, test drive 1 week, next week you're on the schedule and you're doing things.
Many of our areas have those, you know, once the volunteer gets there, they're like, okay, we'd like you to commit to coming 3 times because that's how long it takes us to get you through the full test drive process so you can see everything and you can make an informed decision. You know, maybe you think, oh man, I love babies. I could go rock a baby. And then you get into 11 o'clock at West Lawn and there's 12 babies in there and they're all,
not my
and you're
ministry.
like, oh no, this isn't, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to like pull the curtain back a little bit to see what's really going on. So yeah, I think the word responsible, Eric, was a great word. I think it's a responsible thing to do for both ends of things. So
yeah, and I love what Andrew was saying. And I think it's one of those myths where people, well, I don't, you know, soundboard. I really would love to be able to do that, but no. Let's get you on a test drive here.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, let's be patient. Let's see if, you know, just have that teachable spirit. Maybe it isn't it. Maybe it is. But let's take a look at it together. Let's walk down this road together.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And I love like your area, like the cafe. I mean, those are all volunteers in our cafe out here. We have one cafe manager, you know, but the rest are volunteers. So it might be giving somebody an opportunity to do something that, is we want it to be fun too,
Yeah.
serving to be fun, right? And I remember somebody who worked in IT years ago and was like, I don't want to do that on the weekends. I don't want another part-time IT job. And so I appreciate that, as well. Like it doesn't have to be,
if you're a
we don't want it to
teacher,
feel
right.
like a job. Yeah, if you're a
Sure.
teacher, we are not going to push you. Would we love to have you serving kids, men? Absolutely. And if, but
Ange.
yes. Oh, he
No,
just dropped.
no.
He just did it. I'm not sure if he's getting dinner tonight, but he just did it. But
What I was saying, Ange, is I love you.
I love you. Yeah. But I say you can use your work skills here, but you don't have. We're not gonna.
right.
We're never gonna pigeonhole somebody into something. But one of the things I want to say too, like the other reason we do this process is because sometimes people are, and especially newer to the church, maybe, but sometimes people need some ministry before doing ministry. Sometimes we just had that whole freedom series, right? Free Indeed last month, and there may be something that's a struggle, in your life, and that doesn't mean that you're not still called to serve, but maybe just not right this minute. Maybe we need to help you pastorally work through some things. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, we have some volunteer expectations, and that's.
I had to sit in church for quite a while. I wouldn't have served well until I had worked out a lot of the pain that in my own life and grow spiritually, which kind of steps into what we offer here in that process.
Right.
Growing together is can't give that enough accolades of how important that is to really understand what GT is about, get to meet some people. I mean, it's phenomenal. So when is the new one? I know we're wrapping up.
We're in week 7 tonight, and then March 5th. So you can sign up at Group Link.
And that's both
this coming
campuses.
Sunday, for growing together. So, but I just, and please, I'm not saying you need to be perfect to serve by no means, and none of us would be serving, right?
Well, no one would be here.
No one would be here. But, there might be something going on in your life that we just like to help you through. First, so
Yeah. So I want to take the last couple minutes and just maybe we can, expose and correct some of the common misconceptions that people might have around serving. And so I think maybe one of the biggest ones are the first ones, and we talked about it in our Monday morning debrief. Someone said, what do you guys need people for? Like everything you're doing is like, it's all going great. You don't need me.
Yeah.
Like, so that, that being the first caveat, what you don't need me, you're a big church, you have all this stuff going, but like, it's all taken care of. True or false?
Let me just say this one statement. This, we can probably expand on it. There's not, that I can think of, there's not a single team here or at North, and we're gearing up for Reading. There's not a single team that would say to me, time out, Kim. No more volunteers, please.
Never,
no more volunteers,
never
please.
seen it in ministry.
No.
Not in youth ministry, not in adult ministry, and not at the campus.
Right.
And I get it. You walk into either campus and you're like, wow, you check your kids in. Okay,
That's
thank you.
because our volunteers do an awesome job.
But so you said this earlier, Kim. Let me pull the curtain back. There isn't a weekend that doesn't go by that a volunteer gets sick or their child gets sick or they get called into work. It's whatever. And so we understand that 100%. And we have, I have volunteers up there that I see volunteer every single weekend. Right. And I shared this weekend, my heart would be, man, I would love to have enough volunteers that people could have a week off once a month, from volunteering and just sit in the service. But that's not where we're at right now. I know we love to sit and serve.
I was going to say, but that we do have a sit and serve culture.
That's what we want to do. But we have a lot of volunteers. Do we ever have enough? I would not. No, we never have enough.
No. I mean, obviously we have our bigger need areas. Kids ministry is always has needs, and kids min. And I just want to make sure we clarify what sit and serve is, because we when we sit down with a volunteer, this is another great reason for the process. We talk about limitations in serving. We talk about scheduling, so that we can inform the ministry leader of as much information about a new volunteer coming their way as possible. But we talk about what we call sit and serve, our sit and serve culture. And that is many of our teams, if you're serving in kids ministry, we want to make sure that you can be here for both services, that you can go serve at a service, but that you can sit and be filled up in a service too. We never want to take, if a volunteer says to me, I can only be here at one service, well, then we're going to find an area where you can serve and be in service at the same time, like guest services or something like that, because we never want to pull somebody from receiving to go and serve on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it happens, but on a regular basis.
That's what I've seen happen at the campus is that a couple, and I'm not going to say their name, but I've seen them serve at both services. And I'm like, man, I love your heart.
Yes.
I love that you're willing to do that, but it doesn't feel good.
Right.
I want to see you sit in a service and not serve it too.
Yeah.
And that's so tricky.
And once in a while when it happens, we understand that.
Right.
But as the norm, as a leader too, like that, what you're saying, I don't want to see that.
Right.
We have to protect that for our volunteers too.
And I oversee a ministry where I require you to serve for both services on a Sunday, but I will not schedule every single week.
Right.
Most of my volunteers rotate every other week. Some are once a month, but even still, like I love the heart of a lot of my volunteers. If I have last minute call outs, I dread calling somebody in who has just served the last week and is scheduled the following that they're 3 weeks in a row. Yeah. But like,
well, like
when
snow
they're willing, when they're willing to just kind of jump in and it's like, hey, love to help. But for me as a leader, I've had to protect some of my volunteers and tell them, no, you're not serving. You're not serving at this service. You're not serving this week. You're not serving at this event. Right. Like, and it's my responsibility when I'm building out the schedule to make sure that I'm allowing them to have margin in their life so that they're not there every week in, week out. Because by they all the right and good intention, like they would love to, not feel any sort of negative
serving
way.
Feels good. It does, right? And so,
and
we want to help.
They enjoy it. They want to be a part of the team. They want to help. But at the same time, it's like, hey, you need to make sure that you're still receiving. Right.
Well, and for your volunteers too, Andrew, I love that. Like they're watching the service too. They're not like up removed from it. You know, they're here in the room. It's not the exact same as sitting in a chair.
It is still very, and that's something that we hear from people who do test drives. It's surprising how distracting it is during the service. So you're a part of it, but you're not fully sitting there receiving.
Yeah.
I remember coming into the audio room where you had camera shots and someone had the headset on and they're calling out these camera. I'm like, what in the world is going on? I was like, my head wanted to explode. I was like, this is incredible. I had no idea. I had no idea at all. It was pretty cool, but a lot of work, but very cool. Makes me appreciate the angles I get up there at GT.
Other myths that you guys hear, other things that you want to dispel about serving in the church and serving in the community.
Yeah, I think sometimes people not only think that we have it all covered, but I think sometimes they feel like, what do I have to give, you know? Another reason why we have our process, in that coaching, you know, we sit down and we talk about, I know you guys talked about shape last week, right? But that's spiritual gifts, your heart, your ability, your personality, and your experience. And we ask questions that will uncover those things. And then we put all that together to help you find a fit. So I think sometimes it's just thinking that you have nothing to offer the church, or you're not, maybe you think, I don't know my Bible well enough to serve or to be with kids or whatever. And so, like I just wish that we need to get out of our own heads in that, you know, because God has gifted us and he has uniquely created each one of us. And if he didn't think we had things to give, why would he call us to serve, right? So I think, you know, putting that aside and let us help you discover what you have to give, you know?
I think Paul says it perfectly in 1 Corinthians 12. He says, for the body does not consist of one member, but of many. You know, yes, there are pastors, there's leadership and all of that, but the body is the body. It's every person that is part of that church. It says, if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And he goes on to give further examples, the eye, the ear, and so forth. And that's kind of, Jesus knew how we would feel, and he gives us an understanding of what the church should look like using this simple illustration of the human body. I'm a firm believer that every person who calls GT their home has a fit.
Absolutely.
And, as a car guy, I think of a combustible motor has many moving parts. Some are very tiny, bearings and rocker arms and all these different things. You take one of those little parts out of that combustible motor, that check engine light is going on, and you're going to the garage.
Yeah.
The church is the same way. Some people, we all have different gifts, and your gift, it doesn't matter what it is. Don't think of it as, it's just this. No. It's very, very important. You shaking a hand at the front door and smiling at somebody, trust me, is a gift.
Yep.
We need that gift.
Yeah.
So collecting the offering, whatever it is, helping clean the building, everything, you are a vital part of that. We want to help you find what your gift is. We want you to enjoy serving. You are part of this body.
Right. There are things, we have volunteer teams that do things that I think, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. That audio board. Are you kidding me? My head would explode. I could never do that.
Yeah. So grateful for our volunteers. And as we were watching the video on Sunday, I was thinking, what would it look like if we didn't have all of our volunteers and we were just trying to, like, Andrew, could you imagine if you're like trying to do camera angles and trying to do the lights and the lyrics? And
I've had to do it. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not
You've
fun.
had to do it. It's not fun, right?
It's not fun.
But when I first started, part of my position was to be helped in the cafe and the grill at that time. And it's funny because I think I did that for a good year and a half, almost 2 years. And I left that position. I still couldn't make some of the drinks. I could make a mean yogurt parfait and a milkshake, but some of the more complicated drinks, I was like, nope, our volunteers are doing that. But they do, right? I mean, so
They do it very well.
Yeah, there's just everybody has a place. Everybody has a place.
Yeah. Many hands make for light
That's
work.
right. Yeah,
It's just that simple.
Guys, I do want to respect your time. So it is getting near the end of our time. So any final thoughts, anything that you just kind of want to reiterate from our conversation today or from Sunday's message?
Well, I would say we always need volunteers. So if you were there last Sunday, or maybe you're going to watch it, or maybe something you heard today sparked something, come see us at the Hub.
Sure.
We would love to have a conversation. You can come see me personally up at GT North this weekend. It's not too late. I know we do a big push and emphasis on ServeLink once a year, but we are always consistently looking for someone to jump in and help. So, man, come see me here or come to the Hub at West Lawn and just start asking questions. We'd love to talk with you.
Yeah, and if you don't know where to start with Coffee with the Pastor, and then we will walk you through every step. I would say if you did sign up on Sunday, show this gal some grace because
Yes.
I have between the two campuses, I think like 175 names on the list that I need to.
I know what you're thinking.
With,
they got enough.
No.
No.
And some, everybody's in different places. So, but just I will follow up with you. I'm getting to that. And Eric, I feel like he just did the recruit part. So I just want to again just give a shout out to all of our volunteers. I have a serve coaching team, and they just did a phenomenal job of loving on our volunteers on Sunday. And so I love you guys so much, and I'm so grateful that I get to serve alongside of you. But are just, I always say GT is run on volunteer power, right?
Yep,
and so
100%.
I'm just so grateful for those that are already serving, and for those that got their name on a list on Sunday that want to serve, want to answer that call. And so I love that we have so many faithful servants, and I like that, we can interchange volunteer and servant, but I just love the word servant because I think that's the heart piece of it,
It's the word Jesus uses.
Yeah. So
And keep in mind, we are opening another campus, hopefully by the end of the year. That's a whole nother serve team, a lot of opportunities. It's exciting, but we're stepping out in faith and we're believing.
Yeah. And our church has responded to the call for that too.
Has.
So that's going to be something. But so just bear with us as we get you through the process, and hopefully we've explained that a little bit better today. And I think it comes down to trust. Trust in our leader, trust in our teams that we are just trying to do things the right way. So have a little bit of trust in us, and we'll get you there. So
Great. Well, thank you guys for sitting down and chatting today. And if you missed Sunday's message, you can always go back and catch up and watch it on our YouTube channel or on our website at gtchurch.online, or listen to the sermon in podcast form wherever podcasts are available. And if you enjoy the podcast, make sure you share it with others. Share it with your serve group, your serve team. Share it with your life group. Share it with the person sitting next to you in church on Sunday morning. Eric, would you mind promoting what is coming up at GT this Sunday?
So it is Group Link. Excited about this. Vision for Growing is what we're calling it. I'll be preaching a message live at North. Pastor Rodney Murphy will be preaching live here. We'll both be using the main text is out of 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Paul, just a wonderful first 12 verses there we're going to be looking at. Pastor Rodney, I was speaking with him, a lot of his message is his personal story. So I'll be watching that after it is put online. And I'm going to be encouraging people to get in a life group, man.
Absolutely.
And so I got a pretty cool illustration I'm excited about. So you'll have to come to North to check that out.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Or they can watch it online afterwards.
Yes.
Because it will be archived.
We've got a lot of new groups that will be opening. So.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff going on at GT, lots of things happening around the community, and we're loving it all. Well, I hope that today's conversation has had an impact on your life, though, as we all continue to grow together in Christ. Take care, and God bless.